listen carefully. There will come a moment in your life when the noise around you becomes too loud, the voices of people telling you who to be, how to think, and what you must chase. If you are not careful, you will wake up one day realizing you became a stranger to your own soul. I learned early that greatness never grows in crowds. It grows in silence. The hours I spent alone, training, questioning, breathing, were the hours that shaped me into who I became. When there is no one to applaud you, you learn to act for yourself. When there is no one to guide you, you learn to trust your instincts. Most people run from being alone because they are afraid of meeting their true selves. But the warrior does the opposite. He steps into solitude to sharpen his inner sword. Alone is where you shed weakness. Alone is where you face doubt. And alone is where your real strength is forged. If you can walk alone without fear, the world will eventually follow your footsteps. Be water, my friend. 1. Solitude builds inner strength. People often believe that strength is only about muscles, loud confidence, or how well you can fight another person. But the truth is far deeper. Physical strength can be seen, but the greatest strength is invisible because it exists inside your mind and heart. The strongest opponent you will ever face is not another man throwing punches at you. It is the quiet voice inside your head that questions your worth, doubts your dreams, and tries to hold you back. When you are constantly surrounded by others, it is easy to hide from that inner voice. But when you are alone, there is nowhere to run. You face yourself fully. When I was alone, I stood in front of my fears, doubts, and insecurities like facing a real opponent in a fight. There were no crowds cheering, no distractions, and no excuses. It was just me and my truth. I realized something powerful. Solitude is like a mirror. It doesn't lie. It reflects everything. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your regrets, your dreams, and even the parts of yourself you try to ignore. Most people never allow themselves to look into that mirror. They are afraid that the reflection may reveal a truth they are not ready to face. This is why many people avoid being alone. They fill their days with noise, music, entertainment, social media, gossip, or the company of friends, not because they need these things, but because they are terrified of silence. Silence forces them to confront their real thoughts, and for many, those thoughts are uncomfortable or frightening. So instead of understanding themselves, they drown in distractions and end up living a life built on avoidance, not awareness. But solitude is not punishment. It is training. When you strip away all external noise, when you remove the opinions of others, the pressure to impress, and the constant flow of stimulation, you finally meet your authentic self. You begin to notice how your mind works, what thoughts arise, and how much control you actually have over your inner world. Only then can you begin to strengthen your core from the inside out. Sitting alone with your thoughts is like entering a mental dojo. At first, it is uncomfortable, even painful. But with time, you learn to control your breathing, stabilize your emotions, and observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. You learn the difference between who you actually are and who the world has told you to be. That is where real discipline begins. Because when you can sit alone and stay centered, without fear, without panic, without needing someone to validate you, you have already accomplished something that most people never will. Solitude teaches you to stop running from yourself and start building yourself. You develop clarity, the ability to see your life without distortion. You sharpen your self-control because you learn to govern your thoughts instead of letting them rule you. You cultivate focus because there is no distraction to pull your mind in 100 directions. These qualities, clarity, discipline, focus, and inner control, form the foundation of unshakable strength. Anyone can look strong from the outside, Many people appear confident, loud, and powerful when they are surrounded by others. But true strength shows when the world is silent and you are alone. Can you stand on your own 2 feet without depending on anyone's approval? Can you comfort yourself without seeking distraction? Can you face your inner fears without running? If you can do that, then you are already stronger than most. I learned this through my own journey. My greatest improvements did not come from fighting opponents in public or performing for crowds. They came from the long hours alone, training, reflecting, and breaking my limits in silence. I sharpened my mind and spirit through solitude, and that inner strength allowed me to face the outer world without fear. Being alone taught me to trust myself completely. It allowed me to build a foundation that no one could shake. So understand this. Solitude is not weakness. Solitude is the birthplace of strength. When you learn to stand alone, you realize that nothing outside of you has power over you unless you give it permission. And when your inner world becomes disciplined and unified, the outer world cannot break you. Be strong inside, then the outside will follow. Be water, my friend. 2. Distance is necessary to understand yourself. Most people spend their entire lives surrounded by noise, voices telling them who they should be, what they should want, and how they should behave. They listen so much to others that they forget to listen to themselves. When you are always in the crowd, you unknowingly absorb the crowd's desires, fears, and beliefs. You begin to act, not because you know who you are, but because you are influenced by what others expect from you. This is why stepping back, creating distance, is necessary if you want to understand yourself deeply. When I left the familiar world around me and spent time alone, I discovered how easily the mind can become borrowed. Your dreams can be borrowed, your fears can be borrowed, even your identity can become borrowed. Without distance, you may never realize that so much of who you think you are is actually just a reflection of those around you. But when you separate yourself, when you step away from the people, places, and habits that constantly shape you, the fog slowly begins to clear. Solitude creates space. Space where your own thoughts can finally breathe. When the world becomes quiet, you can hear the sound of your inner truth, and only then can you begin to ask the questions that matter. What do I truly want from life? What do I believe? What do I stand for? What kind of person do I wish to become? If you never give yourself time apart, you may live an entire life without ever answering these questions. I learned that greatness is not found by looking outward, but by looking inward. When I practiced martial arts alone, it was not just my physical technique that sharpened. My inner awareness sharpened too. I began to understand what drove me, what frightened me, and what mattered to me. I could see clearly which paths felt natural and effortless, and which ones felt forced and empty. That clarity was not given to me by mentors, friends, or even opponents. It arose from silence. Distance is not about abandoning people. It is about returning to yourself. When you step back, even the things you already know begin to reveal deeper layers. You can examine your beliefs, challenge them, and rebuild them stronger. Without pressure to conform, you begin to discover your own rhythm, your own style. This is where true identity forms. When I said, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own, it came directly from this understanding. You cannot add what is uniquely your own unless you first know who you are. And you cannot know who you are without stepping away from the world that constantly presses its identity onto you. Distance also helps you understand your emotional patterns. When you are always reacting to people, situations, and conversations, your mind becomes tangled. You lose track of what you genuinely feel versus what the situation forces you to feel. But in solitude, you notice the truth behind your emotions. You see which feelings are temporary reactions and which ones are rooted in your soul. This awareness is essential for living a controlled and purposeful life. Most people fear distance because they think separation means losing their place in the world. But it is the opposite. When you step away and understand yourself, you return to the world stronger, clearer, and more grounded. You are no longer easily shaken by judgment or criticism because your identity is not borrowed anymore. It is yours. You stop chasing validation because you no longer need others to tell you who you are. You become the master of your path. The truth is simple. You cannot build a house on unstable ground. The same applies to your life. If your identity is built on other people's opinions, then your foundation is weak. But if your identity is built on self-knowledge, on what you have discovered through silence, reflection, and solitude, then nothing can shake you. That is why distance is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Through solitude, I learned that the biggest breakthroughs do not come when you are talking, but when you are listening to the still voice inside you. The crowd will always try to tell you who you should be, but your inner voice will tell you who you truly are. If you never step away, you will never hear it. So take time to be alone. Step back from the noise. Let the world fade for a moment. When you return, you will not be the same. You will be clearer, stronger, and more yourself than ever before. Be water, my friend. 3. Solitude turns weakness into mastery. Many people believe that mastery is born in the spotlight, on the stage, under attention, where everyone can watch. But the truth is that mastery is built in silence when no one is looking. The hours that shape you the most are not the ones spent performing in front of others, but the countless quiet hours spent alone, practicing, failing, refining, and improving. When I trained, the world only saw the finished product, the polished movements, the sharp techniques, the philosophy. They did not see the thousands of hours I spent alone, sweating, pushing, questioning, and starting again when no one was there to motivate or praise me. Solitude is where weakness is exposed, confronted, and transformed. When you are alone, you have no one to compare yourself to, no one to impress, no one to blame. You face only yourself, your discipline, your habits, your persistence. This is the most honest training there is. A partner can push you, a teacher can guide you, a crowd can energize you, but only solitude can reveal your true level of commitment. It forces you to ask the real questions. Do I truly want this? Am I willing to work when no one is watching? Will I keep going when there is no applause? If the answer is yes, then mastery begins. In solitude, your weaknesses become visible. You notice every flaw, the sloppy movement, the lack of focus, the hesitation in your spirit. Most people run from seeing their weaknesses because it makes them uncomfortable. But discomfort is the birthplace of growth. If you deny your weaknesses, they will control you forever. If you face them, you can conquer them. That is why solitude is so powerful. It reveals the truth, and truth makes transformation possible. I remember training alone, repeating simple motions hundreds, sometimes thousands of times. It was not glamorous. It was not exciting. It was repetition, silence, and sweat. But each repetition carved a deeper groove into my body and mind. Slowly, the technique became instinct. That is where real power is. When your body moves without thought, when your mind becomes one with action. No teacher, no opponent, no audience could give me that. Only solitude could. When you work alone, you learn to motivate yourself from within. You stop depending on external energy. You no longer need someone to push you or validate your progress. This is the moment when your power turns real, because it becomes self-generated. Most people never reach this point. They stop as soon as the excitement fades or when recognition disappears. But those who endure the silent hours develop a strength that cannot be taken away. They become unstoppable because their fire burns from within, not from applause. Solitude also gives you space to experiment, to question, to evolve. When you practice in front of others, you may feel judged. You may hesitate to try new things or explore deeper variations because you fear mistakes. But when you are alone, there is freedom. You can break everything apart and build it again. You can test new ideas, new forms, new movements. You can evolve without fear. This is how I created my philosophy, by questioning everything, even the traditions I respected. Alone, I could explore openly. Alone, I discovered that martial arts is not fixed. It is a living expression of the individual. And without solitude, I would have remained trapped in someone else's system. In solitude, you learn the greatest lesson of all, that the journey is internal. Most people think mastery is only about skill, but skill is just the surface. True mastery is the alignment of mind, body, and spirit. When you train alone, you are not only sharpening your techniques, but also building discipline, patience, and resilience. You develop the courage to keep going, even when there is no visible progress. You learn to endure boredom, frustration, and pain. These qualities turn weakness into strength more than any physical training ever could. The world celebrates results, but solitude celebrates effort. It does not care how good you are. It cares how dedicated you are. Solitude strips away ego. It forces you to confront the truth, not who you pretend to be, but who you actually are. And when you build from that truth, your foundation becomes unshakable. The skills earned in silence are the ones that last. They do not fade when people stop clapping. They do not disappear when circumstances change. They live inside you. So understand this clearly. Solitude is the forge of mastery. It is where you burn away your weaknesses and shape your spirit. When you embrace solitude, every limitation becomes an opportunity. Every failure becomes a lesson. Every quiet hour becomes a step toward greatness. If you are willing to walk this silent path, you will gain something that the world cannot give, the ability to rely on yourself completely. Mastery is not given, it is earned, and it is earned alone. Be water, my friend. 4. Being alone helps you see others clearly. When you spend time alone, something begins to change inside you. Your eyes, your mind, and your intuition sharpen in ways that are impossible when you are constantly surrounded by people. Most individuals go through life without truly seeing others. They assume, they follow, they trust blindly. But solitude gives you a new lens. It allows you to observe people without emotional noise, distracting your judgment. When I stepped away from crowds and spent time in silence, I started recognizing who lifted my spirit and who drained it, who spoke truth and who spoke only to control or impress. The world becomes clearer when you are not constantly influenced by it. When you are always in the company of others, their energy mixes with yours. Their opinions begin to shape your decisions. Their emotions color your reality. Their desires mix with your goals. You slowly lose sight of where their identity ends and yours begins. But when you take time alone, that cloud begins to lift. You start noticing details, the subtle intentions behind someone's words, the energy they bring into your space, the way they behave when they want something, and how they act when they have nothing to gain. Solitude teaches you how to read people without judgment and without dependency. I learned early in life that people reveal themselves differently depending on what they want. Some will stand with you only when you are rising, when your name shines, when being near you benefits them. But the moment you lose momentum, they disappear, revealing that their loyalty was never to you, only to the image of you. When you spend time alone, you stop clinging to such temporary attachments. You learn to value sincerity more than company. You begin to understand that one honest friend is worth more than an army of admirers. Solitude gives you the strength to choose carefully. When you are alone, you detach from the need for validation. You no longer crave approval, praise, or recognition from others. And when that need dissolves, you start seeing people for who they truly are, not who you want them to be. You recognize who respects your boundaries, who speaks truth without fear, who genuinely supports your growth, and who merely tolerates you for their own benefit. Solitude removes the emotional fog that blinds most people. You see clearly because you are no longer looking through the lens of insecurity or desire. The crowd has a way of pulling you into its rhythm. When everyone moves fast, you move fast. When everyone becomes emotional, you become emotional. When people panic, you panic. But solitude teaches you stillness. It gives you the inner silence to observe instead of react. When you are alone, you can watch others without being swept away by their emotions. You begin to notice patterns. How some people speak with passion but act without commitment. How some appear kind but secretly harbor envy. How some pretend to care but vanish when you need them. Seeing these truths requires a quiet mind. When I became more comfortable with solitude, I naturally stopped seeking large groups. I realized that too many voices can drown out wisdom. I began to surround myself only with those who carried honesty, discipline, and sincerity. People who challenged me to grow rather than pull me into stagnation. This selection was only possible because solitude trained my perception, helping me notice what most people ignore. Being alone also teaches you something deeper, not only how to see others, but how to see yourself in relation to them. You understand what kind of energy you give off, which relationships uplift you, and which ones weaken your spirit. You stop blaming others for your suffering and start making choices that reflect self-respect. You stop forcing connections. You stop begging for attention. You stop tolerating disrespect. You choose quality over quantity, depth over noise. As your perception sharpens, relationships become clearer. Some connections fall away naturally, not because of conflict, but because you grow. Do not fear this. When you rise inwardly, your environment must change. Those who belong with you will evolve alongside you. Those who do not will drift away. Solitude gives you the strength to let them go without bitterness, because you understand that not every person is meant to stay. This clarity also protects you. When you see people as they are, you avoid traps. You stop falling for sweet words and start paying attention to consistent actions. You recognize manipulation early. You sense who is trustworthy and who is not. You learn that true companionship is not about constant presence, but about genuine alignment of spirit. The world may say that being alone makes you cold or distant, but in truth, being alone makes you wise. You no longer allow just anyone into your inner circle. You no longer hand over your energy blindly. Your solitude builds a shield around your spirit, a shield made of awareness, discernment, and self-respect. So understand this. When you learn to be alone, you gain a powerful gift, the ability to see others clearly. And when you see clearly, you choose wisely. You keep what strengthens you and release what weakens you. You stop chasing people and start attracting the right ones. And through that, you protect your path, your peace, and your purpose. Be water, my friend. 5. Solitude forges unbreakable confidence. Most people believe confidence comes from admiration, attention, or approval from others. They think confidence is something given to them by the world. But real confidence is born in silence, when you stand alone with nothing but your own thoughts and your own spirit. When there is no applause to flatter you, no noise to distract you, and no one to lean on, that is when you discover who you truly are. Anyone can appear confident when surrounded by a crowd, but only a few possess the strength to be confident in solitude. When you no longer need others to validate your existence, you have reached a place of real power. When I journeyed toward becoming who the world now calls Bruce Lee, I did not begin with an audience. I began alone. My training was not performed to impress others. I trained to understand myself. In solitude, my confidence grew not from praise, but from repetition, discipline, and internal certainty. Every time I practiced alone, every time I pushed through fatigue, doubt, and fear, I made a silent promise to myself. I would continue no matter what. That promise built confidence far stronger than anything the outside world could ever give me. Because confidence born from others can disappear when they disappear. But confidence born within you remains unshakable. When you embrace solitude, you learn to trust your own vision, your own judgment, and your own instincts. You develop a quiet certainty, a faith in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. Most people never reach this point because they spend their lives seeking reassurance. They need others to approve their choices before they can act. They need someone to tell them they are capable before they believe it themselves. But the moment your faith depends on others, you become a prisoner of their opinions. You begin to doubt yourself the minute their support is gone. This is why many struggle with insecurity, because their confidence has roots everywhere except within themselves. Solitude is where those roots return home. When you stand alone, you learn to make decisions without waiting for permission. You learn to act without needing applause. You learn to walk your path without fear of rejection. Slowly, you stop caring whether others support you or not because you realize you are enough. This realization is one of the greatest gifts solitude can give. It frees you from hesitation. It frees you from self-doubt. It frees you from the need to be understood. You become your own foundation. This kind of confidence is quiet and steady. It does not shout. It does not boast. It does not try to dominate others. It is simply there, a calm flame that does not flicker even when the wind blows. When you face challenges, you remain centered because you are not relying on external strength. You know that everything you need is already inside you. That knowledge gives you a peaceful fearlessness. You don't seek conflict, but you don't shrink from it either. You are no longer controlled by insecurity because solitude taught you that your worth was never dependent on anyone else. Being alone also teaches you how to fail without breaking. Without others watching, you can fall, make mistakes, learn, and rise again. You do not fear embarrassment because there is no one to judge you. You grow stronger because you are free to explore your limits. When you succeed alone, even in small things, you build self-trust. That trust becomes self-belief, and self-belief becomes confidence that no one can take away, because it was earned, not borrowed. This confidence is not only for fighting or performance, it applies to every part of life. When you trust yourself, you stop settling for relationships that drain you. You stop accepting situations that limit you. You stop compromising your truth to fit in. You stop being afraid of losing people, because solitude taught you that you can survive and even thrive on your own. You move through life with dignity and clarity, choosing what aligns with your spirit rather than what pleases the crowd. Over time, people feel this inner strength. They sense that you are not easily shaken. They realize that you are not influenced by pressure or manipulation. They see that your decisions come from conviction rather than fear. This draws the right people toward you, those who respect your path, not those who try to control it. Confidence rooted in solitude becomes a light. You do not need to display it. Others can feel it. It is not loud, but undeniable. Understand this clearly. If your confidence comes from external approval, you will always be vulnerable. But if your confidence is forged in solitude, it becomes unbreakable. Because solitude forces you to face your doubts, and in facing them, you dissolve their power. You learn that you are capable, resilient, and enough, not because someone told you, but because you proved it to yourself through silent effort and internal growth. So take time to be alone. Let solitude refine you. Let it teach you how to believe in yourself without needing applause. When you return to the world, you will not come back seeking validation. You will come back offering strength. That is real confidence. That is the confidence of a warrior who walks quietly, but with unshakable purpose. Be water, my friend. 6. Alone. Time makes your mind your weapon. Most people think strength is only physical. They believe the body is what wins battles and shapes destiny. But I learned early in my journey that the mind is the true battlefield. The body is only an extension of the mind's intention. If the mind is weak, confused, or easily influenced, the body will follow. But if the mind is sharp, calm, and disciplined, then the body becomes unstoppable. Solitude is the environment where the mind is sharpened. It is the silent training ground where thought becomes precise, awareness becomes deep, and intention becomes powerful. When you are alone, there is no outside noise telling you what to think, how to feel, or what direction to take. You are left with nothing but your own thoughts, and this is where true mastery begins. At first, your mind may feel chaotic, thoughts may race, emotions may rise, doubts may whisper. But slowly, as you remain in solitude, you learn to observe your thoughts without being pulled by them. You start to understand the patterns of your mind. What triggers fear? What sparks anger? What fuels desire? This self-understanding is the foundation of mental strength. When you know how your mind works, you learn how to guide it, rather than be controlled by it. In my own life, I spent countless hours in silence, not simply to rest, but to study my mind. I wanted to understand how I reacted under pressure, how I handled frustration, how my emotions influenced my movements. I discovered that when the mind is calm, every action becomes sharper, every technique becomes cleaner, every decision becomes faster and more accurate. But if the mind is scattered, even the strongest body loses its efficiency. A distracted mind creates a distracted life. Solitude is what brings the mind back into alignment. People often underestimate silence. They think silence is emptiness, a lack of activity. But silence is full of awareness, insight, and truth. When you sit alone without distraction, your inner senses awaken. You begin to notice things that your busy life never allowed you to see. The tension you carry in your body, the habits that dominate your thinking, the stories you tell yourself that keep you stuck. Solitude exposes all of this, not to shame you, but to free you, because you cannot change what you do not understand. As I trained alone, I developed the ability to focus intensely. I could commit my full attention to one movement, one breath, one intention. This kind of concentration is rare because most people live in a world of constant interruption. Their minds are always halfway somewhere else, thinking about what happened, worrying about what will happen, comparing themselves to others, replaying conversations that don't matter. They never truly live in the present moment. But solitude teaches presence. When the world becomes quiet, the mind naturally settles. You start to feel your breath, your heartbeat, your awareness. You begin to experience life directly instead of through fear or memory. With time, the mind trained in solitude becomes like water, adaptable, responsive, steady. Water does not panic. It does not resist. It flows, fills, softens, and overcomes. When your mind is like water, problems lose their power. Pressure does not break you. It refines you. You think clearly even when others panic. You make decisions based on truth, not emotion. You act without hesitation because your mind and body move as one. This is the mind of a warrior, calm in chaos, focused under stress, sharp when others are dull. This mental sharpness also protects you from manipulation. When your mind is strong, you are not easily influenced by opinions, trends, or expectations. You are not swayed by praise or crushed by criticism. You become your own compass. You think for yourself, choose your own path, and act according to your own values. Solitude teaches you to rely on your inner judgment instead of blindly following others. It makes you independent, not in isolation, but in spirit. You stop needing someone else to tell you what is right because you can feel it within yourself. And the more time you spend with your thoughts, the more you learn to refine them. You filter out what is useless, doubt, fear, negativity, and strengthen what is useful, clarity, courage, purpose. Gradually, your mind becomes disciplined. It listens to you. It serves you. It becomes your greatest ally instead of your greatest enemy. That is when the mind becomes a weapon. Not a weapon of destruction, but a weapon of precision, insight, and mastery. This is why I always valued solitude, not as an escape from the world, but as preparation for it. When you return from quiet time with a sharpened mind, you move differently. You speak differently. You respond differently. You begin to notice opportunities that others miss. You see through illusions that others believe. You understand people without letting their emotions pull you around. You become centered, grounded, and clear. The storms of life no longer confuse you. They reveal your strength. So understand this clearly. Your mind is the greatest tool you will ever possess. But like any tool, it must be sharpened. And solitude is the sharpening stone. When you learn to control your mind, you control your life. When you strengthen your inner world, the outer world becomes easy to navigate. Alone time is not a weakness. It is the secret training that transforms your mind into a powerful, disciplined, unstoppable force. Make your mind your weapon. Be water, my friend. 7. Solitude connects you to your true path. Most people drift through life without direction. They follow the expectations of family, society, or the crowd, thinking that this is the only way to live. They chase what others chase: status, approval, comfort, and then wonder why they feel empty even when they achieve these things. The truth is simple but rarely understood. Your path is unique, and it cannot be revealed to you by others. It is found only when you turn inward, when you allow yourself to be alone long enough to hear the whisper of your own spirit. Solitude is not a retreat from life. It is the doorway to your destiny. When I spent time in silence and separation, I learned things about myself that no teacher, no master, and no book could have told me. I realized that martial arts was not just a physical practice. It was my language, my expression, my way of understanding and communicating with the world. I could not have discovered that truth if I had been lost in the noise of the crowd. Solitude allowed me to listen to my inner calling. It helped me see the difference between what others wanted for me and what I truly wanted for myself. This clarity was the foundation upon which I built my life. Your true path is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it reveals itself slowly through a quiet interest, a gentle pull, a curiosity that won't leave you alone. But you can only feel this inner direction when your mind is quiet, when you are not constantly distracted by the thoughts and voices of others. Solitude gives you the space to explore these signals. It lets you question your desires, understand your motivations, and feel which direction resonates with your heart. Without this inner exploration, you may spend your entire life climbing a ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. When you walk alone, you begin to see how much of your identity was built on imitation. You notice how often you tried to fit in, to impress, to avoid rejection. You see how much energy you spent trying to be accepted rather than trying to be authentic. Solitude removes these masks. It forces you to meet yourself without roles, without labels, without the version of you that the world demands. And slowly, you begin to discover who you truly are beyond your background, your achievements, or your failures. You find the person beneath it all. Once you begin to understand yourself, your path starts to reveal itself. You sense what feels natural and right, and what feels forced and empty. You no longer follow trends blindly. You don't choose a direction because it is popular or expected. Instead, you follow what aligns with your inner truth. This may take time. It may take many silent hours, many moments of uncertainty. But that uncertainty is not a sign you are lost. It is the sign you are beginning to listen. Walking your true path often requires courage because it will not always be accepted by others. People may question you, doubt you, or even criticize your decisions. But solitude teaches you to trust yourself. When your choices come from within, they are harder to shake. You no longer need everyone to understand you because you finally understand yourself. And when your spirit leads, the path becomes clearer with every step. You grow more confident, more focused, more alive. Life begins to flow instead of feeling like a constant struggle. Many people never discover their purpose because they are afraid to be alone. They cling to others for direction, hoping someone else will tell them what to do. But your spirit does not speak through others. It speaks directly to you, and the only way to hear it is to create space. Solitude is that space. It is the quiet room where your destiny whispers. You will never hear it in the crowd, because the crowd is too loud, too busy, too confused. They are searching for themselves. They cannot help you find you. When I followed my path, it did not always make sense to others. Some thought I was wasting my time. Others believed I should follow tradition, stick to the old ways, and not question them. But if I had obeyed those voices, I would have betrayed my own truth. Solitude gave me the strength to break from the mold, to create something new. Through that freedom, Jeet Kune Do was born, not from imitation, but from honest self-expression. That expression came from listening to my inner voice and trusting it even when others did not. This is what happens when you allow solitude to guide you. Your life stops being an accident and becomes a creation. You stop drifting and start choosing. You stop seeking approval and start seeking truth. You stop trying to be someone else and begin becoming who you were meant to be. You walk your path not because it is easy, but because it is yours, and that makes all the difference. Understand this clearly. Your true path is already within you. It is not something you must force or search for outside. It reveals itself when your mind is quiet, your heart is open, and your spirit is unafraid of standing alone. When you accept solitude, you step into alignment with your destiny. You begin to move with purpose. And every step you take, no matter how small, carries the power of truth. So allow yourself time alone. Protect your silence. Listen deeply. When the world goes quiet, your path will speak. And once you hear it, follow it with courage. Because nothing in this world is more powerful than a person who walks a path chosen by their soul. Be water, my friend. 8. Solitude teaches you emotional mastery. Most people believe they are in control of their emotions, but when pressure arrives, their reactions reveal the truth. They become angry easily, hurt quickly, jealous without reason, and fearful when uncertainty appears. Their emotions rule them like a master ruling a servant. But a warrior understands that true power lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling oneself. And solitude is where this emotional mastery is forged. When you are alone, there is no one to blame, no one to distract you, and no one to soothe your discomfort. You are left face to face with your own emotions, and this is where the real internal training begins. When I spent time alone, I learned that the mind and the heart move like water. They can be still, calm, and clear, or they can become wild, chaotic, and turbulent. But most people never learn how to calm themselves. They rely on others to comfort them when things go wrong, to lift them when they are saddened, or to motivate them when they feel weak. This dependence keeps them emotional slaves. But when you face your emotions alone, you learn how to soothe your fear, how to quiet your anger, how to dissolve your sadness. You discover that peace is not given to you by someone else. It is created within. In solitude, emotions arise without warning. You may feel anxiety, boredom, loneliness, or frustration, but instead of running from these feelings, you learn to sit with them. You begin observing your emotional patterns. You notice how certain thoughts trigger fear, how past memories create insecurity, how imagined futures create panic. You begin to see that emotions are not enemies to fight, but signals to understand. They show you where you are wounded, where you are insecure, where you are holding on to something that is no longer serving you. When you can see your emotions clearly, they lose their power to control you. Many people try to escape their emotions through noise, talking, entertainment, constant movement, addictions, distractions, but escape delays growth. Solitude forces you to confront the truth. When you sit with your emotions long enough, something powerful happens. The storm passes. Like waves crashing against the shore, emotions rise and fall, but they cannot harm you when you watch them with awareness. You learn that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. This understanding is the foundation of emotional freedom. I learned early on that anger clouds judgment, fear locks potential, sadness weakens focus. But when you can stand in the middle of these feelings without being swept away, you remain free. That is emotional mastery, not the absence of emotion, but the ability to feel without losing yourself. In solitude, you develop this skill slowly but deeply. Each time an emotion rises and you do not run, you grow stronger. Each time you face fear and remain still, your courage expands. Each time you feel sadness without collapsing, your spirit grows resilient. This is inner power. Some people believe emotional strength is built through conflict with others, but emotional strength is built through conflict within yourself. When your mind screams and your heart trembles, but you remain centered, you win the deepest battle. In solitude, you become your own teacher. You learn which thoughts to ignore, which emotions to heal, and which reactions to release. You learn how to breathe through pain, how to communicate with your inner child, how to break patterns that have controlled you for years. Emotional mastery is not a burst of strength. It is a quiet, steady transformation. With emotional mastery, you become unshakable. When others insult you, you see their words as reflections of their own struggles. When people disappoint you, you remain compassionate instead of bitter. When life becomes uncertain, you hold your ground instead of panicking. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer get pulled by anyone's energy, you remain centered in your own. People around you may still lose themselves to anger or fear, but you learn to remain calm, clear, and grounded. This calmness becomes your strength, and others feel it. When your emotions are under your control, your relationships transform. You no longer cling to others out of fear of being alone. You no longer allow toxic behavior because you're afraid to walk away. You no longer hurt others because you feel hurt inside. Emotional mastery gives you the ability to love without attachment, to give without expectation, to walk away without hate. You become steady, a peaceful presence in a chaotic world. This is the gift solitude gives. Over time, solitude teaches you something even deeper, that emotions are not obstacles, but guides. They show you where your attention is needed. Fear may point to a place where you must cultivate courage. Anger may reveal a boundary that must be protected. Sadness may show you what needs healing. When you stop fighting your emotions and start learning from them, they become allies. This is true emotional intelligence, born not from books or speeches, but from quiet, honest time with yourself. Understand this clearly. Emotional mastery is a lifelong journey. There will always be new feelings, new challenges, new waves. But when solitude teaches you how to surf these waves, you no longer fear the ocean. You welcome it. Because you trust your ability to remain afloat, no matter how strong the tide. This confidence makes you powerful beyond measure. So allow solitude to become your emotional training ground. Sit with your feelings, listen to them, learn from them, heal them. When you return to the world after this inner training, you will carry a quiet strength, the kind that does not need to be shown because it is felt. You will walk through life with a calm heart, a steady mind, and a spirit that cannot be shaken. This is emotional mastery. Be water, my friend. If you have listened closely, then you understand now that solitude is not emptiness, nor is it a punishment reserved for the lonely. It is the silent ground where all great things are born. The world teaches you to fear being alone, to fill every moment with noise, to depend on company so you do not have to face yourself. But the truth is this: only those who have the courage to walk alone will ever meet their true potential. Only in silence does the mind awaken. Only in stillness does the spirit speak. I did not become Bruce Lee by seeking crowds, praise, or approval. I became who I am because I was willing to step away from the noise and meet myself in silence. In that space, I learned who I was not, and who I could become. My greatest breakthroughs did not come from the world outside. They came from the quiet fire I built within. Solitude taught me to sharpen my mind, strengthen my body, and master my emotions. It revealed my weaknesses, but it also showed me how to transform them into strengths. It guided me toward my true path, not one chosen for me by others, but one chosen by my spirit. When you embrace solitude, you gain a power that cannot be taken from you. You develop inner strength that does not need recognition, clarity that is not dependent on opinions, and confidence that does not crumble under pressure. You learn to trust yourself. You learn to move through the world with purpose rather than confusion, with awareness rather than ignorance, with discipline rather than chaos. You stop chasing what is not meant for you and start attracting what aligns with your truth. Your loneliness becomes your teacher. Your silence becomes your companion. Your mind becomes your guide. There will be moments when solitude feels uncomfortable. You may face thoughts you have avoided, emotions you have buried, or truths you never wanted to admit. But remember, a sword is not forged in comfort. It is shaped through fire. The discomfort you feel in solitude is the fire that melts away illusions and sharpens your spirit. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you discover that you are not empty. You are full of potential, full of ideas, full of strength you never knew you had. Do not fear losing people. The ones who are meant for you will recognize your growth, respect your silence, and support your path. Those who fall away were not part of your journey. They only walked beside you for a time. Let them go with peace. What matters most is that you do not abandon yourself. Because at the end of every day, when the world goes quiet and the noise settles, the only person you return to is you. If you have built a strong relationship with yourself, you will never feel lonely, even when you are alone. Solitude will give you the wisdom to see clearly, the strength to stand firmly, and the courage to live authentically. And once you have tasted this freedom, you will never trade it for the chains of approval again. You will walk through life not as someone seeking acceptance, but as someone offering presence, not as someone desperate to be seen, but as someone who sees. You will move with calm certainty, like water, adaptable, patient, and unstoppable. So embrace the quiet, seek the stillness, protect your time alone the same way you would protect your most precious treasure, because it is in that silence where you will meet the only person who can truly change your life, yourself. And once you awaken that inner power, the world around you will begin to change as well. Be alone, be aware, be present, and above all, be water, my friend.